Shabbos Chanukah. We all know that there were two major miracles for which reason that occurred on Chanukah. The most obvious reason is the reason that the Hashmonaim were victorious over the Yevonim, and the miracle was that there were Rabim Biad Me'atim, there were so many of the Yevonim, and we were only few. Rabim Biad Me'atim, Giberim Biad Chaloshim, they were Giberim, they were warriors, we weren't. Rabim Biad Me'atim, Rishoyim Biad Tzadikim. That's the obvious miracle. The Gemara and the other miracle was the miracle of the Neiros, that there was enough oil only to burn one night, and it burnt 8 days. For which miracle did Chazal see to institute a Yontif Chanukah for all generations? If you would ask me, I would have thought the miracle is the victory over the Yevonim. That was a real victory. Chazal, the Gemara in Shabbos Chaf Aleph Amud Beis seems to say it was the other miracle, the miracle of the Neiros. The Gemara asks in Masechta Shabbos Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, the Gemara asks, my Chanukah. My Chanukah, which Rashi interprets to mean Al Eize Nes Kavuha. For which miracle did they establish a Yontif? And the Gemara says the miracle of the Neiros. V'lo hoya boi ela lahadlik yom echad. It had enough oil only to burn for one night. Nasa by nes, the language of the Gemara. A miracle was performed with this oil, and they kindled, and the lights burned for 8 days. And the question is, why? Why does the Gemara interpret? Why did Chazal institute a Yontif for the Nes HaNeiros, for the miracle of the oil, rather than the victory over the Yevonim? I would venture to speculate that the reason that they instituted the miracle for the Nes of the Neiros was because before Chazal institute a Yontif for all generations to come, it has to be foolproof. The miracle of the Neiros was foolproof. There was only enough to burn for one night, and it burned for 8 days. The miracle over the Yevonim, as a greater miracle as it was, Rabim Biad Me'atim, Rishoyim Biad Tzadikim, but still, perhaps, maybe the Hashmonaim had some sort of a strategy to be able to be victorious over the Yevonim, and maybe it's not necessarily a miracle. That's what I would venture to say. It's not necessarily a miracle because it could be interpreted that it was some sort of strategy they had. But if we look into a Rashi in Devorim, we'll see that would be difficult to say, because in the bracha, before Moshe Rabbeinu was nifta, he gave a bracha to the tribes. It says Ulalevi Omar, the bracha to the Leviim, and the Hashmonaim were Leviim. It says Machatz Musnayim Komov, right at the beginning of Devorim, pasuk 8. right at the beginning of Zeis HaBracha, Mechatz Mesnayim Komav, that he should be able to smite through the loins of them that rise against him, Min Yikumun, that they should not rise again. And Rashi explains, Dover Acher, Rashi explains that Moshe Rabbeinu, before his Petira, Ro'ah Sha'asidin Chashmenoi Yuvonov Lehilochim Im HaYavonim. Moshe Rabbeinu foresaw that in the future there will be Milchama, Sha'asidin Chashmenoi Yuvonov Lehilochim Im HaYavonim, that the Chashmonaim who were Leviim, Kohanim, would fight against Yavonim, v'hispalel aleihem, and he davened. Moshe Rabbeinu davened for the success of the Chashmonaim in many generations to come, that they should be successful over the Yavonim. Why did he really have to daven so hard, Moshe Rabbeinu? Because Rashi tells us how many Chashmonaim were there that beat the Milchama against the Yavonim. Lefi shahayu muwatim, they were few. Yud beis b'nei Chashmonoi, 12 Chashmonaim v'Elazar, and another person Elazar with them. 13 people, kineged kama revovis, against many myriads. A myriad is 10,000. Many myriads, at least 20,000. 13 people were fighting against at least 20,000 people, and they needed. Moshe Rabbeinu foresaw they needed help. For his Aleihem, it was the tefillas of Moshe Rabbeinu that enabled 13 people to be victorious over 200,000. So if that's the case, then the answer that we gave before, that it has to be foolproof, that's what we said before, that when Chazal institute a yontif for all generations to come, it has to be foolproof. And we answered that it wasn't foolproof because maybe the Chashmonaim had strategies to be victorious in war. But and it's not foolproof. But that answer that we were speculating to say is not so, because can anybody deny 13 people fighting against 20,000 is not a miracle? Nobody can deny that. How could it be? So we have to look for a new reason why they instituted. Why they instituted the Yontif of Chanukah, because of the Neiros, the victory over the Yavonim was not only because they had good strategy, it was a nes, an absolute nes. How could 13 people be victorious over 200,000, of 20,000? So we see from here, I think, that it's still, even 13 people fighting against 20,000 can still be interpreted that it's not a miracle. Why? Because the world who will see this, they'll say, there must have been a strategy. The world doesn't want to see, they don't want to admit, the world does not want to admit that it was a miracle. They see in this victory what they want to see. In other words, they're so biased, the Welt is biased against the Klal Yisrael, against Chashmonaim, that even if it's so obvious that there was a miracle, 13 people against 20,000, the world could still interpret it that it was a strategy, it was something else. Why? Because they're so biased. They don't want it to be a miracle. They don't want to admit that there was a Rebbeinu Shalom on the world that helped them. They don't want to admit that Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillas helped that they should be victorious. So what we see from here is the incredible power of bias. It's so obvious that the Nes HaNitzochen of the victory over the Avonim, it's so obvious that it was a miracle. But even something so obvious can be misinterpreted, and they could say that it really is strategy, it was strategy. Why? Because they're biased, they don't want to admit that there's a Rebbeinu Shalom that performed miracles for them. They don't want to admit there's a Rebbeinu Shalom on the world. Yeah, it's a strategy. But we see the power of bias, that even 13 people against 20,000 at least, maybe more, at least 20,000, still can be misinterpreted that it was not a miracle. That's how far bias can reach. According to all this, if this is so, then we have maybe a Musar HaScale to be able to apply to our own daily lives throughout the year. How much we have to watch ourselves, not to deceive ourselves. Are we being from a Yidden? Are we learning Torah? Are we doing mitzvahs? Are we doing chesed to the best of our ability? Or are we deceiving ourselves? We have bias for ourselves. So bias can take us so far to say that 13 people against 20,000, at least 20,000, is not a miracle. That's the bias of the world, and that bias might apply to ourselves too. We think, we see what we want to see, we do what we want to do, not what we should be doing. So this is a Musar HaScale to watch out for negias, for bias, that we shouldn't deceive ourselves and not do what we're supposed to do. The Eibishter should help us. Hashem should purify our hearts, that we should be able to see right through ourselves, to do only what's emes, and that's the way we will be able to serve Hashem properly. We should be zeicher to this. Amen v'yamen. I would like to add just one more thing. This is the Vort, and this is the Musar HaScale, but a question on Rashi. Rashi said that when the Gemara asked my Chanukah, which means, according to Rashi, al ezen nes kovuha, for which miracle did they institute the Yontif of Chanukah? And the Gemara answers that the miracle was the miracle of the Neirais. I have a little personal question here on this. If that's so, according to Rashi, why in the tefillah, in the davening, when we say Alanisim, B'meimat Yisrael ben Yachin Galgal, the only thing that's mentioned there is the miracle of the victory over the Yevonim. You stood by the Chashmenoim, Masata Giberim B'yad Chaloshim. You gave over the warriors into the hands of weak people, etc. No mention of the Nes HaNeirais. No mention of the miracle of the lights, except at the end it says, "Vidliku neiros b'chatzos kodshecha." They lit lights in the holy Beis Hamikdash, but it doesn't say the miracle of the lights, that there was only enough oil for one candle and for one light, and it burned for 8 days. It's not mentioned at all. According to Rashi, that's the main point of the whole Yontif, is to commemorate the Nes HaNeirais, and here in Alanisim, all that is mentioned, the Chazal instituted to say the victory over the Yevonim. That's a little personal question. I don't know the answer.